So hi everyone, my name is Suraj. I'm an engineer at Hasura. Um, I'm a maker. I love repeating patterns and love traveling and driving. So I'm not a Postgres expert, but I've been working with Postgres for a while, and I wanted to experiment something on Postgres, and basically to explore Postgres in a different way. Because if you look at the current Postgres explorers, there were some features that I really wanted, and mix and match with some of the other explorers. So yeah, I started working on it, keeping in mind that the engineering effort needs to be less and focus on the product. So yeah, I built a product called DB Lens, and it's open source. The idea is to have a database explorer feeling, and also you should be able to get meaningful insights from a database. I so here is the gist of the application. So it's a open source sorry, open source database client. You can install it on Mac, Windows, or Linux. It's an Electron JS application. So I just like to share my experience on building it. I launched it on October 2021 and on Product Hunt and got like around 227 upvotes and stuff. Um, okay, so why to start with Postgres, right? So I did a little bit of analysis on how Postgres is doing these years and came out around 5,300 companies are using Postgres in production and 300 product integrations on Postgres and a lot more. Like if you look at 1 billion plus Docker pulls and it is still growing, right? I've also checked a recent survey that is done by Stack Overflow, like how Postgres is growing. And if you look at the numbers, Postgres is still growing. It's even though MySQL is kind of the first, if you look at the way it is growing, Postgres is growing more. So yeah, so Postgres is like a very old technology, right? A very old database, and people are still using it. So if you look at the people who are using Postgres, there are still a lot of people who are building new solutions on Postgres. So it's not really an unpopular one, right? So I just did. I just wanted to uh, think about like why I started building another one, right? Because if you look at PG admin or Table Plus, there are a lot of things in the market. I focused on a few features because so my use case was mostly on like I wanted to get onto some other folks' database and see how the database is structured, and also I wanted to learn about how the disk usage is growing over time, and also how the disk usage is for each tables and indexes and stuff like that. So I wanted to focus on a few things, which is it should be minimal. It should have a minimal database exploring feature, and also it should be able to visualize database performance in simple terms, not like a very complex thing that you can work on, and you'll get a bunch of logs, and from there you analyze a lot of things, right? I wanted to make it more friendly to even to a front-end developer so that they can analyze things. I also wanted to make sure the disk usage is something that they can understand in a very friendly visualized way, so that with the help of charts or something like that. I also wanted to give some aha moments of okay, I connected to this database. I also wanted to understand this data relationships quickly, right? Because if you look at the database schema that we export from a database, it will have some written configuration, which is not that friendly, right? So how many of you have worked with Postgres here? Awesome. So yeah, so here's the thing. Like if you probably try to connect with a customer database or something, right? You'll see that the data understanding their or basically onboarding to the database is not very easy if you don't have a very good documentation on their premise, right? So this is when I started thinking about entity relationships in a serious way, so that if you connect to a database, you get your entity relationships on the fly. And I also wanted to learn about how the index usages are on a particular database and how much it is being actually used, right? and also how is the sequential scans looks like on a particular database, so that you can learn and understand your database, and so that you can tune better, right? So yeah, here is a short demo of the application. So when you connect to a particular database, you'll be able to see minimal database exploring features. You'll be able to see the schemas. You'll be able to see the tables, and with some paginations and stuff, filtering. And you'll also, as a developer, you mostly would have to work on SQL commands, so you can, so there's a simple UI where you can, write SQL commands and execute the query so that you can get the data out of it. So this is one of the interesting thing that people, I personally like more. So when you connect to a particular database, you'll be able to get this kind of a visualization wherein you can see like how each tables are, fitted onto your database, how much memory it consumes, how the disk space is being used, right? So that you can analyze it in a much better way. And it can also tell, like, if there is a table called user, and if there is also a table called index user, you can, if there is an index table called user, you can also understand how the index table, how much the index table is actually taking up the space. So similarly, you can find the record ranks, index usage, unused index, like if there is something that you can clean up, you can learn. So now that this application can provide you all this information, but the future it'll be like recording all this information and derive some trends out of it, put it through some sort of intelligence, and learn how it grows over time. So this is a convenient feature that you can, it's a very simple feature, but I think many of the friends that I've worked with have really liked it, because if you share a simple URL, you can click on it and then get connected to that particular database. Okay, yeah, this is what I was talking about, entity relationships. You can generate the entity relationships on the fly. So yeah, this is available on dblens.app. It's a completely open source Electron.js application. So talking about tech stack, I wanted to make sure it is on JS ecosystem, because I think most of the developers have worked with JS, right? So how many of you have worked with JavaScript or TypeScript or anything? Perfect, yeah. Probably this is the reason why I chose JavaScript over other frameworks, so that, people can, it's super popular, and it's quick to develop, and it's really simple to work with. So similarly, I wanted to find a framework that works on JavaScript. I went ahead with Electron.js, which is very popular, and it is proven by VS Code and Slack and this kind of applications. Yeah. So if you look at the architecture, it is more like a front end and an IPC main, which is a Node.js runtime where you can interact with. And then I've used Tailwind CSS for the UI purpose. So yeah, I'm gonna quickly go through the slides. Basically, why open source? I think everybody knows here the value of open source and how people love open source and stuff. Yeah, quickly I wanted to talk about the roadmap. So right now, it's at a very early stage. Like we started with an installable application, but going forward, we're going to have features like live real-time features and more server features, so that you can record and analyze the trends and growing, how the database grows over time. Cool, thanks. Okay, I'm on time. Any questions? Sure.
Hello. It's not working on MacBook M1.
Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah, that's
But,
something
yeah.
on progress.
Just wanted to say that thanks for making DB Explorer app. I'm always on the lookout for good free DB Explorers. So yeah, thank you for making this.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the talk. Just out of curiosity, might be very dumb question, but everything is moving to like web applications. But DB Explorers, I'm still seeing that new DB Explorers that are coming, they are still native. Is that like some constraint from the web application side, or in the future, let's say WebAssembly type of technology can solve it, and all DB Explorers will move to web? Do you feel that?
Yeah. So basically, if you look at the code architecture, it is flexible. So in a way that most of the part is abstracted into a particular layer, so that in future, if you want to make a Docker image out of it or maybe a server out of it, it can be readily plugged. So at the moment, we just wanted to, I just wanted to focus on the developers so that they can simply install it and get onboarded without worrying about Docker networking or how to connect a particular local databases onto a different container and all. If you have used PG admin and all, right? So you cannot directly connect a Postgres database running on your local machine with that PG admin container, because you have to handle the Docker networking to make sure that instead of localhost, you are providing the Docker host, configuration. So yeah, to answer your question, there are plans to migrate this into a Docker image so that you can act like a server and web application altogether. Because Postgres connection is something that you cannot directly start from a browser at the moment. So you need a Node.js runtime to get this. So similarly like this. So if you look at the Electron architecture, right, it'll have a front-end renderer and it'll also have a Node runtime. So when you have a Node runtime where you can execute Node.js queries, which is in our case, if you want to use Node Postgres, right, or the connection library that we use, we need a Node.js runtime. So that is the reason why there is this kind of a separation. So in the future, IPC main can also be converted into probably an Express application or a server or any sort of things. But without a Node.js instance, it is not straightforward. Yeah. Cool.
One question. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So have you tried this with production data, or do you recommend it with production data?
Yeah. Actually, what I've mostly done is, when I wanted to debug a particular instance, right, except that SQL query executor part, you don't really see any mutations on the database. So the queries that are using internally is mostly on the read-only side. So you can, as long as you're not playing around with the SQL query executor, you can use it. Cool. Thanks a lot.